Ukraine says more than 150 Chinese mercenaries are fighting for Russia in Ukraine. Now, in a shocking twist of events, it turns out that some Chinese mercenaries are fighting in the Ukraine-Russia conflict. Now, what has already been reported is that North Koreans are already fighting in the conflict. But what is especially heinous, and I'm sure nobody will care about it after I'm done, is Chinese soldiers have been found. So I think two Chinese soldiers has essentially been found with passports and everything. And the Ukrainians have found even more records, even more documents of Chinese soldiers that are fighting on the ground. And while Zelensky, is reaching out to China for a comment, China has essentially called all these claims baseless, foundless, groundless, and just lacking of evidence and stuff like that, right? Even though at the same time, there is suspicion that Beijing actually knows about the Chinese soldiers that are fighting and that there are Russian recruiting forces. Russian recruiting that is happening among Chinese citizens. Okay. Now, the thing is that this is actually consistent because as I discovered today, apparently China has always been supportive of Russia in its war effort. And what I mean is that it's been propping up Russia economically since 2022 at the very least, and has been supplying electronics, possibly drones, supplies, all of that sort. Okay. So, in a way, the Ukrainian war has kind of become a proxy war on behalf of China as well. This is a terrifying thought, just mainly because China is also a nuclear power, and you have Russia that is fighting in the war against Ukraine, and then you have China on the other hand that is inserting their tendrils into the conflict and also fucking things up. Now, obviously, needless to say, this is kind of horrible, just mainly because of the odds of Ukrainian soldiers that are up against multiple superpowers, because we have North Korea, we have China, and we have Russia that are effectively ganging up on Ukraine. And if you think about it, it's just completely fucked up because if it's actually true that Beijing officials have authorized this, then yes, it's especially fucked up. Because here's the thing, historically and in this conflict, China's official position, their official position per se, is that they are neutral. They are not actually taking any sides in this conflict. So, but then their actions kind of say otherwise, right? Just like providing the supplies, providing the equipment and everything. So let's read a little bit of this article here, and let's point out some parts that I feel like are more important. Okay, so. Ukraine on Wednesday expanded on its claim that significant numbers of Chinese nationals are fighting for Russia's invading army, saying it had gathered detailed intelligence on more than 150 mercenaries Moscow allegedly recruited through social media, probably sites that China allows through, but then, doesn't allow places like Twitter through or something, that kind of stuff. Moscow allegedly recruited through social media. In China, officials called the allegations totally unfounded, but it's like, who believes them, right? Um, President Volodymyr Zelenskyy announced Tuesday that the Ukrainian military had captured two Chinese men fighting alongside the Russian army on Ukrainian soil. It was the first time Ukraine had made such a claim about Chinese fighters in the war. All right. So if we go along here, now the thing is that Zelenskyy has evidence, okay? Zelenskyy said Ukraine has the last names and passport data for 155 Chinese citizens fighting for the Russian army, and that we believe there are many more of them. He shared with journalists documents listing names, passport numbers, and personal details of the alleged Chinese recruits, including when they arrived in Russia for military training and departed for service. The AP has not independently verified the documents. So we still need some verification, but so far it seems to be promising, considering how Zelenskyy so far isn't really a liar. Zelenskyy doesn't seem to be somebody who, has bad credibility, at least among journalists. And here is China's role in this war. China has provided strong diplomatic support for Russia since it launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February of 2022. It has also sold Russia machinery and microelectronics that it can use to make weapons, Western officials say, in addition to providing an economic lifeline through the trade in energy and consumer goods. So, China is far from being innocent. In fact, China might be the one country that is really helping Russia getting through this war based on attrition, because again, it's a war of attrition, very much so, right? But it's still very surprising. Everybody is surprised by this news. Okay, nobody was really expecting Chinese soldiers to be found, right? And we don't know how well trained they are. We don't know if they're trained by China, trained by Russia, or something. We just don't know. Okay, let's look at some videos. Okay, of this.
Шановні пані та панове, їх високоповажності президент України Володимир Зеленський та прем'єр-міністр Королівства Бельгія Барт де Вебер.
Ми взяли в полон китайських військових на території України. В бой вступили українці на Донеччині, Тарасівка і Білогорівка. 6 китайськими військовими, 2 в полоні. Але мені здається, нам є що говорити з американцями і будемо вірити, що вони змінять свою позицію, особливо після сьогоднішньої новини. Відповідно, є документи, є їх паспорти, є навіть кредитні картки. Це громадяни Китаю. Я думаю, що це важливий дуже елемент. Я думаю, Сполученим Штатам Америки треба більше приділити увагу тому, що відбувається сьогодні. І ми очікуємо після того, що це ще одна країна, яка військово підтримує вторгнення Росії в Україну на боці Росії. Це ще одна після Ірану і військових Північної Кореї. Але є різниці. Північнокорейці на Курському напрямку воювали проти нас. Китайці воюють на території України. І я думаю, що це важливий момент, який нам треба обговорювати з партнерами. Думаю, терміново. Я розумію, що ми сильна країна, але ми не можемо воювати одночасно з багатьма країнами, яким всім щось потрібно на нашій землі. Дуже розраховуємо, що після цієї ситуації американці будуть говорити більше з українцями, а потім з русскими. І дуже надіємо, що китайська сторона також відреагує. В принципі, я доручив міністру закордонних справ зв'язатись і міністру оборони зв'язатись з китайськими контрпартнерами, щоб вони дали нам пояснення відповідних дій.
So that was just President Zelenskyy talking about the Chinese soldiers that were found in Ukrainian territory, right? So not hostages, okay? These are prisoners of war, okay? Not hostages, prisoners of war, all right? So these guys are not hostages, all right? Again, hostages implies that Zelenskyy is has taken innocent people and then captured them and is threatening their lives in exchange for some deal, okay? But when it comes to prisoners of war, it's somebody who is actively participating in a military conflict, who is also armed, who has been captured, okay? All right, let's take a look at this. It's 9 minutes long.
Ukraine has captured 2 Chinese mercenaries in its eastern Donetsk region, marking the first evidence of Chinese soldiers' involvement in Russia's war of invasion against Kyiv. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy shared the video of one of the Chinese captives being interrogated by Ukrainian army. In a post in social media, Zelenskyy clarified that the Ukrainian side had the documents, bank cards, and personal data of the captured Chinese soldiers. The Ukrainian leader demanded an urgent response from China and instructed the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine to immediately contact Beijing over the incident. There is information that there are significantly more than 2 such Chinese citizens in the occupiers' units, Zelenskyy wrote, adding that China's direct or indirect involvement in this war in Europe is a clear signal that Putin is going to do anything but end the war. The Ukrainian president called
Oh, yes, there's a really good point that's been brought up in chat. If they had their passport, if they had credit cards, if they had all of this stuff, they had every single means to escape, to get out, to whatever. It kind of implies that they've been there voluntarily, right? If they've been there voluntarily, they could be volunteers, right? They could be volunteers. Who knows? But yeah, that's like the implication, right?
on the United States, Europe, and everyone in the world who wants peace, to respond to what happened. Zelenskyy said the captured Chinese citizens were being held by the Security Service of Ukraine, known as SBU. This appears to be the first case of Chinese soldiers being taken hostage by Ukrainian fighters.
So he's imitating a drone and he's imitating gunfire right now, okay? Quite possibly imitating how the drone was firing on them and they were also firing on the drone, okay?
然后我的 commander boom
And then my commander got destroyed. That's what I'm assuming this person is saying.
然后就哇
And then
Yeah.
and then he made a hand signal that imitates a person falling to the ground dead. So what he's saying is that possibly a Ukrainian drone attacked them or something, and then killed their commander.
然后就啊然后我就我呀啊
Okay, and then I think what he's implying here is that they essentially threw themselves to the ground to lay low.
然后他就就跟那个
Okay. Yeah, I mean that just seems standard to me. Yeah, okay. But yeah, there you go. That's the video that Zelenskyy released to the public, okay, regarding the captured Chinese troops. Okay, so here's a BBC report on it, okay? I'm giving you guys lots of sources because these are the sources that I essentially was using to research this topic, okay? And again, this is breaking news, okay? It's breaking news, so we don't know all that much about it yet. So yeah, just keep that part in mind.
Unknown questions at the moment, but I think the sight of a Chinese citizen being captured, fighting for Russia, says a lot in itself.
Yeah, we obviously have to wait for this to be verified. James Waterhouse.
Yeah, so again, spooky. All right, spooky, because we have not seen Chinese soldiers fight forever, okay? We have not seen Chinese soldiers fight in any conflict forever. So, you know, this is why it's so spooky, okay? Yeah. Cool. I think that's really about it for what we're looking at. And yeah, like we just have to wait for more news to come out about it. So yeah, there's nothing really anything else to cover here, you know.